People are not buying the Charlie Kirk story that the FBI is putting out and the government overall, especially people like Candace Owens, who's good friends with Charlie Kirk. So I put together some videos here, and the first one we're going to start off with Charlie Kirk in his own words, talking about free speech and freedom of the press. And he would himself would not like what Pam Bondi and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and all those government sycophants are saying right now about free speech. They want to cut free speech, and I think this is a subject that both the left and the right and the middle, this is a subject that the left, the right, and the middle all agree on, that the First Amendment gives you free speech. Whether it's hate speech or not, it's still free speech. Like Pam Bondi said the other day, hate speech isn't free speech. Yes, hate speech is free speech. Anyway, let's hear Charlie Kirk saying his own words before he was tragically killed. And then I have a couple other videos, and I'll explain those before we get to them.
What are some policies you can educate myself and everyone here with that Trump's going to put into place?
He will end the Russian-Ukrainian war. Blessed are the peacemakers. He will secure the southern border and restore sovereignty. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. No men and women's sports, establish energy independence, booming economy, middle-class tax cut, and one of my favorites, he will end the weaponization of government against political opponents, and we will not live in a country where you go to jail just because you have different ideas. Those are just some off the top of my head.
So that's Charlie Kirk in his own words, talking about free speech, the weaponization of government, which is exactly what Trump is doing right now. So he was wrong about that, unfortunately. But the thing is, how Trump is weaponizing the government now, just like he got the Supreme Court to make him immune to anything he does while he's in the presidency. What MAGA doesn't realize is when they're out of power, those rules still apply. Like the next president, whether he's a Democrat or a progressive or conservative, is going to be immune to anything he does in the presidency. Just like as they roll back free speech now, the next administration, whether it's J.D. Vance or Zohran Mamdani or AOC or Bernie Sanders, they will have the same precedent and power to roll back free speech. That's why everybody should be against what Trump and the White House is trying to do now with free speech and Jimmy Kimmel and all that stuff. So this next guy is talking about, it's also in relation to the Charlie Kirk assassination, but he's talking about the assassin and his Groyper background. I got a lot of pushback on this on my last video, the Joe Rogan one. I'll put it right here if you haven't seen it. But basically, Joe Rogan doesn't theorize he's a Groyper, but I did in the video because, he dressed up like Pepe the Frog, which is a Groyper emblem. He's a big follower online of Nick Fuentes, the Nick Fuentes Groyper movement, incel movement, which is basically a bunch of guys who have sworn off women and sex and everything. But there's also a twist to it, and I'll let this guy who knows much more about it, like I didn't know some of this stuff when he said it, but I'll let him explain.
Aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, the world is struggling to identify what Groypers are. I worked in video game land on the internet in 2018, 2019, and I was there for the formation of all of this. I'm former MLB agent Joshua Kuznick, and Nick Fuentes leads the Groyper movement, which was spawned out of like Pepe the Frog memes, 4chan, Reddit, like incel shitpost culture. And eventually they decided to turn all their attention against mainstream conservatives and attack Turning Point USA. It's the main target of Groypers. They hate leftism as a baseline, but the Groyper movement is much further to the right than MAGA. MAGA will never adopt the Groypers. They're happy to benefit from what the Groypers do, but they will never absorb them in because the Groypers have very mixed ideologies, and some of them love trans people, some of them love femboys. They are incel culture, so they hate women so much they would rather deal with a femboy, hence the Nick Fuentes Fuentes video from 2 years ago with the cat femboy furry who he said, ooh, he's cute. Like, Nick Fuentes used those words about a femboy. I don't care about that, but MAGA surely would. So in a just world, MAGA and leftists would unite against the existential threat that are groypers, but here we are being blamed, the left, for what the groypers are doing, and MAGA has no idea, or they're intentionally letting this happen because the groypers are coming for them, and that scares the shit out of me, because if they start blaming the left for what the groypers are doing, this very well could be the Reichstag fire for sure, or worse yet, Kristallnacht for trans people or more. The end.
So you see, guys, it's never black and white. Like, this guy, he could have had a trans girlfriend. He could have also been raised MAGA and conservative. He might have been MAGA 2 years ago when he dressed up as Donald Trump for Halloween and, you know, still hated, you know, groypers are MAGA, you know, strong, not MAGA light. They're like way right to MAGA. You know, he could have been that and MAGA and also liked trans girls, you know, and very confused as a 22-year-old man. I was 22 years old once. You know, you don't have a handle on who you are at that point in your life. So that's the thing. It's what I'm saying is it's never black and white. You could be MAGA, you could be kind of liberal. Like me, I disagree with MAGA on most things, but I agree with them on like free speech. I agree with them on Israel, and you know, we have areas where we definitely agree. Anyway, this next video is Candace Owens just going through the FBI tapes and what they have about the assassination, and you know, call it a conspiracy theory, but she has her own theories. She doesn't really give her theories, but she just kind of alludes to them in this video. But just watch and you'll see.
The end.
Footage, and we're going to show you it, which shows a man at 8:07 a.m., so hours before the shooting, wearing a maroon t-shirt and light shorts, as you were seeing on your screen right now, hands in his pockets, that is just walking outside of university grounds, okay? Now, Governor Cox tells us that at 8:29, which is an interesting timeline, Governor Cox tells us that that is when the shooter, Tyler Robinson, arrived at UVU campus in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, and a black hat with a white logo. So essentially, he's saying that what that person we saw walking down the street right there arrived on campus at 8:29. I'm going to allow you to hear Governor Cox say that himself. Take a listen.
Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes.
So what's interesting, already confusing to me, is that TMZ shows him already walking. We're supposed to believe he walked, parked his car, and then walked onto campus. They're saying that after that video that you just saw of him walking, he got into his car and then drove to campus, and then at 8:29 p.m. on campus is when he arrives. Already confusing, but let's just keep going. We don't need to poke holes. Let's just keep going with the narrative. Then we're back to TMZ, and they release that at 11:49 a.m., they have footage of the shooter who has now changed his outfit. We're supposed to gather that, again, on a doorbell cam, and he's in a different outfit. So this is 11:49 a.m. Charlie Kirk has not yet been shot. Take a look at this. Okay, and for those of you that are listening to this on audio, you are going to see someone who appears to be limping, okay? So maybe he changed his outfit at some point and now he's limping, and the idea that we're seeing floated is that he's limping because he's holding the gun in his pants, okay? That's kind of what's been floated, okay? That has not particularly come from the feds. I don't believe so, but he's limping now and he's got on a different outfit. Okay. 11:52 a.m., and we were actually going to check this, by the way, but I think that we had the FBI say that that was when he arrived on campus. Maybe that's not accurate. But so let me just skip off of that, because Skylar, we should actually look to research that. But at 12:23 p.m. is when Charlie Kirk is shot. Okay. And 12:23 p.m. is when that, in that same minute, is when we have footage that shows us that as the crowd ducks, and it's blurry, the shooter runs across the rooftop. I'm going to tell you why that's significant. So 12:23, Charlie Kirk is shot, and we are going to have an angle of that and the image of the black person in black rather, that is running across the rooftop. Take a look at this. They're down, clearly. And right away, look at that, okay? And we have another, so the footage shows us, there's another actually clip that I was looking for, Skylar, there, that it actually shows him running across the rooftop. You guys may have seen it. The reason why that footage is problematic, as you start to see them ducking and then you see the shooter immediately start moving across the rooftop, is that their narrative is that he disassembled the gun and then started running. So that's a bit confusing to us of how he was able to do that so quickly. An unbelievable amount of hunters, guns, people that reached out to me and said, that just didn't happen. They have, exactly as Michael said, that did not happen. There is no way that happened. That cannot be accurate. Then, and this is obviously the craziest part of everything, we have Decoy Boy, right? So it happens and suddenly this guy, George Zinn, gets arrested. He's making noise. He's signaling that he's somehow shot the guy. And at 12:52, it gets announced that the suspect is in custody. So nobody needs to look around anymore because this suspect is in custody. But actually, I guess George Zinn just does that. He just does that, I guess, like just wants people to think he's done something but he hasn't actually done anything. That, again, to me feels like he's a decoy, like more people are involved in this. And I will say that we don't know, but we know that something's wrong with this.
So guys, sorry that was kind of long, but I just wanted that out there. You know, Candace Owens was good friends. She could be, you know, just trying to use this as a way to get more attention. She already gets plenty of attention. But, you know, the George Zinn guy, I don't know if she was alluding to, you know, Zinn is a Jewish last name, I believe. I think she's, you know, her premise here is that, and she doesn't want to say it out loud, is that he was assassinated by Mossad or Israel or, you know, our government in the name of Israel or something like that. I'm semi-familiar with guns, but a lot of people have said online that this gun is very difficult to take apart and you would have to use tools to take it apart. So the fact that he's, you know, she brought up the point that he wouldn't have had time when he was running across the roof to disassemble the gun and all that stuff. So I don't know. What do you think? Comment about what you think she said, or the Groypers, or, you know, a bunch of guys in my last video. You know, I know MAGA watches my channel because they hit back hard at me about, you know, suggesting he was a Groyper and not a trans kid. He's definitely not a trans kid, but he might, you know, or there's a good chance his boyfriend is trans or a furry or whatever. But that's also within the scope of the Groyper movement. So, you know, and Groypers are even more right. So to call them liberal is just not correct at this point. Anyway, thanks for watching the Spin Cycle. If you like this, the best thing you can do is share, comment, subscribe, you know, share with a friend. It's really helpful. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.